Okay, so welcome to those here live and those who are looking back on this recording. And yeah, the month of August, it's going to be an interesting month, as every month is, if you're an astrologer, I guess. But there are some more strengths coming in this month, thankfully. Even though we've had a lot of strengths all year, those strengths haven't been easy, as I'm sure you're aware. The strength of Saturn is very challenging. The strength of the nodes, the lunar eclipses, the solar eclipses, these are very challenging points in the chart. And now we're about to be challenged again with another planet that sometimes can challenge us as well, which is Mars. But before I get into that, maybe I'll just talk a little bit about the overall sort of background theme of what's happening right now. Has been going on for a long time, has, and will be. And then jump straight into the month of August, because there's quite a contrasted situation happening in August. And that is between the transits in Sagittarius and Capricorn, and this threshold between these two signs, which is this symbol here. This symbol is of the sign Uttara Ashada. And so this bridges the two signs, Sagittarius and Capricorn. And this symbol is of an elephant, of course. It's very symbolic of where we're at now this year, with Saturn in this sign all year, Jupiter moving in and out of the sign all year, Pluto in the sign all year. This is quite an important symbol for the year. And this is the background, as I said, during this period, even though there's going to be another influence now coming in strongly in August and very contrasted to this symbol. So one of the images, okay, so one of the stories that is very suitable for these times we're living in, and in relation to this sign Uttara Shada, which means the latter victory, or the latter victorious, the latter invincible, which requires some austerities, because it implies that there is a latter victory, that it's not going to happen straight away. That's what this sign is all about. And because Saturn is here all year long, Jupiter is here for pretty much most of the year, and then Pluto is here all this time. Mixing all these things up together, it means this, I guess, this story of, I don't know if you've heard of this story, but the story of the blind men and an elephant is really important in terms of where we're at as a culture. And so the story of the blind men originated in India, actually. And I'll just read a bit about it here. I just printed something off the internet, just a little snippet. So it's a story of blind men who never came across an elephant before, and who learned and to conceptualize what the elephant is like by touching it. Each blind man feels a different part. Pardon me now, 1 second, sorry. You have to keep admitting people in. So each blind man feels a different part of the elephant's body, but only one part, such as the tusk or the side. They then describe the elephant based on their limited experience, and their descriptions of the elephant are different from each other. So that's the key point here. So in some versions, they come to suspect that the other person is dishonest, and they come to blows. The moral of this story is that humans have a tendency to claim absolute truth based on their limited subjective experience, as they ignore other people's limited subjective experiences, which may be equally true. So this story is very relevant for where we're at now in our culture, because of all the planets gathered in this sign that's symbolized by the elephant. But again, that also this sign that bridges Sagittarius, which is subjective truth, and Capricorn, which is objective truth. So let me just, excuse me, mute somebody who's unmuted. Okay, so that's why I just wanted to highlight that basically we're at this is a long-term thing. It's not a short-term thing. It's the whole year, especially this year. And you may say that it's many years in terms of Pluto's transit for the next few years, but certainly this year with Saturn and Jupiter here, this is the long-term theme of the year. Now, let me just show you another image from the app. By the way, with the app, and apologies for this, it's still not available for Apple on the Apple Store. We're having a problem with it. Well, I'm not personally having a problem with it, but the developers, the platform, is having a problem. So we're just having to be patient with it. So I haven't received it yet either. If you have an Android device, you should have it downloaded, but it won't be up on Apple for, well, I don't know when, but hopefully soon. So this is the sign I've been mentioning. It's the sign that bridges Sagittarius and Capricorn from 26 degrees Sagittarius to 10 degrees Capricorn. And this is where these three major planets are transiting for most of the year. So the moon is there today. So the moon is there right now, and that's a good day for treating diseases, defeating enemies, and austerities. So this is another key point in terms of the transits of the planets through signs. Because the signs, if you think of the signs themselves, if you think of this symbol of an elephant as being very sort of, stable, and, that sense of victory is going to come regardless. It's just on its way, and that's it. You're not going to stop an elephant. But you think of that in its purity, and that's that star sign in the heavens, now being somewhat obscured by the planets. So although Saturn is very strong there and brings these lessons to bear in terms of bringing a disease in the first place and something to defeat an enemy, in this case a virus, and the austerities that are necessary to overcome this, as well as the hope we have with Jupiter here, and the hopelessness also on the other side of it. And then Pluto, this sort of despair, basically with Pluto, we can despair with Pluto. And so when you have all these gathered in this sign for the year, the sign itself cannot express itself very clearly. Because it's almost like the planets are eclipsing it, so it's not going to be able to express its clear intention. So that's one of the themes, as I mentioned. Now, the theme that's going to kick in strongly in this month, in August, is that Mars is going to move into the first lunar mansion of the zodiac called Ashvini. Ashvini is one of the most dynamic signs. It's at the beginning of Aries, 0 degrees of Aries to 13 degrees. And so when Mars moves in here into the sign Aries, which rules Aries, and Ashvini, which is ruled by Ketu, the south node of the moon, the southern eclipse, which started this whole virus thing off in the first place. If we go back to last December, Ketu and all the planets that were gathered in Sagittarius was the timing for the beginning of the eclipse, or at least our awareness of the eclipse or the virus. So now we're having this theme of Ashvini, which is Ketu's other sign. And I'm hopeful that this will show some developments from mid-month. Because as soon as Mars moves in here, it's very strong. And so there might be an initial something or other coming out at the end of August and the beginning of September. There'll be some need as well, though. And this is the contrasted nature of Aries versus Capricorn that I just mentioned, and the elephant and the steadiness of the elephant and this slow sort of moving along of the elephant with this galloping and needing to be free of the horse. So Aries is very much about freedom and in being impulsive and just going for it and not thinking, just doing it, and wanting freedom and to travel especially. So this is very contrasted to the other sign, Uttarashada, which is about being responsible, going slow, doing something, or not doing something in this case, perhaps, hesitating and just thinking more about what we're doing as opposed to this galloping ahead without forethought. So this is highly conflicted in a way because Mars moving in here now. However, I do think, though, as I said, because it's a sign that shows healing and swift healing at that there's going to be some developments I can see at the end of the month and in the beginning of September. Now, there is a caveat with that because as soon as Mars goes in here, it only makes it to 4 degrees of Aries, and it will station retrograde and it will start moving backwards from September 10th. So next month is going to be a different story. Next month is going to be a thing of, oh, something got started, you start something in your life, we got a bit of freedom, movement going, something is coming in, and then there's this movement back. So there might be an initial doing something and then needing to go back over it again. And it won't come back here until Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, 24th of December. So Mars will return here on December 24th into this sign. So we've got a few months to go yet. We've got a few months of kind of back and forth with what's going on right now. And it could be frustrating, especially from September, from mid-September, when Mars starts to move backwards. And Mars and Ashvini and Aries, all it wants to do is move forward and as quickly as possible. And we're going to be asked to move backwards. We're going to be asked to retreat. So just keep that in mind in whatever you're doing in August, because it is going to be quite explosive on the one hand, and it's going to be very freeing on the other hand, and it's going to be very, impulsive and inspiring and dynamic and all of that at the end of the month and into the beginning of September. But again, it's a bit premature because we're going to have to, go back over it again. So that's what I wanted to say about the overall picture of August before I jumped into the day by day. So let me just do that day by day, and then I'll do it as I usually do. And then if you have any questions at the end, you can feel free to ask questions. So here we are right now. The moon, as I mentioned, is in this sign. It's at 5 degrees of Capricorn at the moment. So this is within this range, conjunct Saturn, which is retrograde in this sign, Uttarashada, the latter victorious. You'll see here that Pluto has actually moved back into the previous sign, but it will return to Uttarashada. Pluto is there still in Uttarashada. So the moon and Saturn can be somewhat of a more somber day, despite the fact that it's a full moon, of course. We're now in the full moon phase, and the full moon is exact tomorrow. And the full moon is in the next lunar sign, Shravana, in Capricorn. But it's a full moon in Capricorn. And normally you have full moon kind of, high energy out there, going out and about and enjoying things. And we have a bank holiday weekend here in Ireland. And it's dampened down an awful lot because of Saturn right now, and Saturn retrograde in this sign. So again, the need on the one hand is to be very responsible. And see here, Mars, it's at 24 degrees. In the next couple of weeks, it's going to move into Aries, and we're going to get, that jolt of energy that we just really want to get out of this now, because Saturn aspects Mars this whole time. And as soon as Mars moves into Aries, it leaves Saturn's aspect. It goes into this conflicted situation, of course, because you open the paper today and you see all these stories about a lot of youth holidaying on the continent and just enjoying themselves, no sense at all of lockdown, which is what Mars is. Mars is youth. It's that youthful energy, and I don't care, I'm just going to do what I want. Contrasted to Capricorn, which is an older energy. Saturn's like an old energy, a responsibility, and literally older people who are going to get sick because of that irresponsibility. That's the conflicted situation here. And I've heard comments literally from people who have said that to me, younger people who said, oh, at this stage, I don't care. I don't care if I get it. So they're not really thinking about other people, which is what Capricorn asks us to do. Mars is more about, oh, I just want to do what I want to do. So this is something to be mindful of, especially by the end of the month. So anyway, keep an eye on Mars. You'll see that Mars is going to start moving towards Aries by mid-month. We have this conjunction here of Venus and the North Node Rahu on the opposite end here. And I mentioned that in the report, and you can see it coming about already. Prince Andrew has been more definitively included in the investigations into child trafficking. Ghislaine Maxwell, you can see that trial is coming more to the forefront. And I mentioned that because Venus and Rahu bring scandals. Venus is sexuality, of course. Rahu is an eclipse, it's shadowy. Gemini is information. So it's all about bringing out something. And we're seeing that more and more. Mercury has just moved into Cancer with the Sun. And it's going to oppose, obviously, this new full moon tomorrow. So there's quite an opposition going on here at the moment between the head and the heart. The head wants to do what the head wants to do, but the heart has its own needs. And so there might be sort of a contrasted feel there for this full moon. during this weekend. Okay, so that's the general theme. I'm going to just jump through them one day at a time as I normally do. You'll see them. The sun obviously is going to be the primary mover. It moves the fastest. The fastest is in fact the ascendant. So you'll see the ascendant move each day. It'll start to shift, but the moon is the more obvious one. So here we are, third and fourth. The fourth, the moon has now moved into Aquarius. And so it's joining Neptune, which is retrograde now, remember. It's aspected by Rahu, and Venus and Rahu are still together. So we might get another flavor, continued flavor of this scandal that's going on. I keep moving forward. The next couple of days, moon is joined Neptune, and then it's going to join Mars on the 7th and the 8th. And so by the 7th and 8th, this theme of Mars is going to kick in strongly. And the theme of Mars in Pisces, especially at the end of Pisces, is kind of like, okay, we're done with it now. Okay, I need to move on now. This is it. This is the end now. And I need to do something new. And the end of Pisces is very much about transitioning from one thing to another and starting something new. Now, the transition itself is a bit tricky because there are three especially sensitive transitional points in the zodiac. They are the end of Pisces, end of Cancer, and the end of Scorpio. And all three of these are going to get very activated in these coming weeks. Mars is crossing this section between Pisces and Aries, which is quite volatile. Sun will move into Leo, as will Mercury, mid-month. And then the South Node K2 will move by September, crossing over this juncture, probably the most volatile of them, by the end of September, and triggering the eclipse, which occurs in December, but it's going to be triggered right from the end of September. So these 3 points, they're called Gandant, and it sort of represents an ending and new beginnings, and it's a very tricky juncture. So it's kind of like this undoing or an ending and this new beginning. And it's a bit precarious, to say the least, this period of time. August is a very precarious month, and it's highly volatile and combustive and all of that, and strong in very many other ways. But we're at a transition point now, and that's going to become more and more obvious in September. And I think we need to use August to make some changes, but again, keeping that theme I mentioned in the beginning in the background of your mind the whole time, of whatever you do, whatever you jump into, just be mindful of the long-term picture and doing what's also responsible with other people in mind as well. Because one of the things that is going to be very big in terms of themes is Mars and Aries and the theme of regrets and impulsive actions that you later regret. And I'm going to release an audio that I recorded with the visual artist that I work with, Rana Samir, and he has joined me for this talk about regrets, the whole theme of regrets for this. I think it's very appropriate for this Mars transit in Aries. We actually recorded this last year, planning on doing something else, and that didn't pan out. So I actually thought I'd just release it just for patrons this month, just to give you, again, another sense of what Mars and Aries is like, because I actually was born with Mars and Aries, so I know a thing or two about it. And I actually was born with Mars retrograde in Aries, so I know a thing or two or three about it. And this is what we're all going to experience now in the coming weeks, this Mars and Aries retrograding. So anyway, that's more in terms of September. We should really focus, I guess, month by month. So Aries is very much jumping into something and starting something new. So this theme, though, by the 8th of August would be this sense of things kind of finishing up in many ways. It's like saying goodbye to something. But are we? That's the thing. That's the big question. Because whatever you feel like you're finishing now, you will have to go back over in some shape or form in the coming months as Mars returns to Pisces from the 4th of October. So from the 4th of October and until it stations direct actually in November, on November 14th, that whole period, all of October and the first part of November, we're going to be kind of having to recalibrate things and reassess what we're starting right now. Go back over it. And there's no harm in that. We just have to be mindful of that's what we have to do, and get on with it. And again, like I said, by the end of the year, Mars will go back into, it will be back here where it is right now, in December. And then on the 24th of December, on Christmas Eve, Mars will move into Aries again. And then it will stay in Aries. It will continue to move through Aries over Christmas and into the new year. So there's a more powerful beginning in the new year coming. And that beginning won't have this kind of inbuilt hesitancy or this sense of where, it's kind of premature. It won't have that. We have to be mindful that it has it this time. Okay, so I keep going forward. You see that the moon will then actually move into Aries then on the 9th and 10th. So we maybe get a flavor of what that is at that point then. What are we starting now? What is the impetus here? What do we want to make happen? And then on the 12th and 13th, we see the moon is exalted and the Mars is just about to move. So keep an eye on that. It's on the threshold now. The south node is getting closer to the threshold, as is the sun. So through the middle of August, it's a highly volatile period because of that transition. And the thing is as well, is that this transition between Cancer, Leo, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Pisces, Aries, it's the transition between two highly amicable elements, water and fire. They just don't mix well. So when you put water and fire together, as in an example of tropical storms, you add heat and water and you get tropical storms. So this is more likely during this period, of course. But in terms of our personal lives, we have to be very mindful of water and fire and that kind of, letting off some steam now and then so that this doesn't build up too great. And that's especially the case with Mars, because Mars is building and building in strength. And as soon as it jumps into Aries, again, it's not just going into Aries, its own sign where it's very strong. It's out of the aspect of Saturn and the restrictions of Saturn. So it's really want to gallop. It just wants to gallop free. And so that part of us wants to gallop free and wants to just move and travel and do whatever we want to do, regardless of the consequences. So we have to be really mindful of what we're doing at this time. Now, I don't mean to be putting a dampener on all of this, because I do believe this is a very powerful month to do things. I'm just saying we have to be really mindful of the bigger picture here. I sound like an elder, like and a wiser person. I'm not. I'm just reading the astrology. I'm actually more Mars-like myself. And you'll hear in the discussion I had with Rana Samir about the regrets, how I have so many regrets in my life from doing things so rashly and impulsively. And, that's what Aries can be like. It's like just jumping in head first, literally. Aries is the head. So anyway, moving on. You'll see then on the 14th and 15th, they're again just about to move. On the 15th, Mars and Sun are about to move. And that, again, that's a transitional point. And then on the 16th, you see Mars has now moved, the Sun has moved into those fiery signs. And the theme for the rest of the month then will be fire. We're moving then from fire or from water to these fiery elements. And so this is going to be the theme. And you'll see here that Mercury is the next to jump. And so it'll do it the next day. And if you see, if I just bring it forward one day, you'll see now Sun, Mercury, Mars are all in fire signs, adding to Pluto, Jupiter, K2. And a couple of days before this, Uranus stations retrograde. So this is another complication on top of the background theme of Capricorn and doing the responsible thing and thinking long term, regardless of this impetus to move. And that is Uranus retrograding in the same sign as Aries. So what that may feel like is that we have this feeling of moving forward, of doing something, of just starting something new. And because Uranus is retrograde in Aries, we have to make a lot of adjustments, a lot of internal adjustments to this new thing that we started. It's like, if you haven't done something for a while or started something new for a while and you do it, it's a very different world out there. And so when Uranus retrogrades, it's about making those internal changes in accordance with the external changes that have occurred already in our world. So this is another theme from August onwards for the next few months, Uranus retrograde in Aries. When we add the fact that by September, Mars and Uranus will both be retrograde in Aries, then it's absolutely a must that we have to recalibrate and reassess and redo, and maybe even reverse out of certain things that we do now. But certainly redo them and go back over them and figure out a better way to do them, you know. That would be a big theme. Another thing at that time is that just as Uranus stations retrograde, Mars has just moved in. You know, these are big themes. Sun has just moved in. Mercury and Sun have come to conjunction. So this is when Mercury's on the other side of the Sun, so it's a superior conjunction, and it's kind of like a turning point as well in many ways. And when Mercury meets with the Sun, it then starts to, because Mercury on the other side of the Sun is moving very fast. And so it's going to speed ahead of the Sun. It only spent 2 weeks in Cancer, same again in Leo, going into Virgo. It's like speeding through all these signs. And another reason that August and September are like light speed in many ways, and Mercury moving so swiftly is like we just want to make plans and start doing stuff. Added, you know, to Mars, right? And again, we just need to keep that bigger picture in mind as this happens, because later on, again, September, Mars is retrograding, Uranus is already retrograde, and then by October, Mercury will retrograde in Libra, opposite in Libra. So really, whatever we're doing now, whatever plans we're putting in place, just be mindful of that. And again, I don't want to be a damp blanket on all of this energy that's really fiery and inspiring and, you know, all of that, and impulsive, and it's great, but we have to keep this in mind. So another thing we have to keep in mind is aspects. So these aspects, Mars now is aspecting Cancer. And so you think, okay, that's fine. You know, that shouldn't be so bad. However, Rahu, the North Node, is aspecting Cancer, and Saturn is also. So that means all these three, what are termed malefics, are aspecting Cancer. And likewise for Libra, because Saturn aspects Libra from where it is, Mars is now across from Libra, and Rahu aspects Libra. So these two signs of the zodiac are getting it pretty heavy right now. And so whatever area of your life these signs are feeling the pressure. Because on the one hand, there's the pressure to not do something, which is the Saturn and the block from Rahu. And at the same time, the intense desire, which is Rahu, and the need to push forward, which is Mars coming in now. And so that can really kind of pull things apart. Now, that could be a good thing in many ways, because it can lead to big changes that you have to make. But just be mindful of pressure in these two areas of your life. If you know what these two signs are for you, or if you have these rising sign or moon sign, Cancer or Libra, whatever they are for you, that's feeling it right now. And especially as Mars comes in then from the end of the month. So I'll keep moving forward. Moon is in, we're at the 17th now, where all the transitions, the big changes are happening on the 17th with all this fiery trine. I mentioned that in the report. So Mars, Sun, Jupiter, all this major fiery trine. Again, remember that story I told about the blind men and the elephant, that they all, you know, were feeling the elephant and had their own story of what this elephant was. That's the fiery trine. That's the, I believe this is the truth, right? That's what fire represents. It's Dharma. This is my truth, right? But it's not universal truth, which is represented more by the sign Capricorn. So think about this transition again, and between Sagittarius and Capricorn, and what I mentioned there. This trinal fiery trine now, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, is particularly strong in Aries, or in August. And so therefore, what we're going to see in the world is like major sort of blowouts, because everyone's going to be, this is what I believe is right, and it's my truth, and this is what is true. And again, all those truths can be seen as contained in a higher truth, a more, you could say, objective truth, which when you're just, you know, again, like in the story, you're blind and you're just feeling one part of the elephant. You just think that the elephant is the tusk or the tail or whatever it is, and you don't see the whole picture. And this is, again, what I keep coming back to, and I'm maybe going to stop doing that now because I feel like I'm really preaching. So I'll move on. Okay, so 18th and 19th, we see the moon then is coming in to meet the sun. And so this is the new moon. The new moon occurs in Magha, the beginning of the sign Leo. See here at 2 degrees on the 19th of August. Now, this is again a fiery start and a very inspiring new start as well. And it's this this juncture again between water and fire, which is, you know, volatile again, as I mentioned. And the South Node is very close now to this juncture between the fire and water, Sagittarius, Scorpio. So, and Mars is still hanging out there. So they're all particularly activated by the end of the month from the 19th. And, you know, the more obvious expressions of this are, you know, explosive events, you know, worldwide. Of course, in your own personal life, you could be very mindful of, you know, the kind of volatility this suggests. So it's a new start all the same, and I would use it for that and plan it. As always, though, the new moon day, 19th, is not the best day to actually do whatever it is you plan to do. The new moon, the energy is low, and so it's best to actually start something in your mind and plan it, but not actually start it literally. The energy just isn't there. You need to wait more so then for the energy to start building with the moon waxing. But it's definitely a day to plant a seed, to start something new in that sense. So that's the 19th of August. Okay, moving forward, it's on the 20th, it's still there, and then the 21st, it moves into Virgo. I want to make sure that I haven't missed anything else important out, actually. I mean, there's so much I can talk about, and I'm just conscious of, I always write lists, and then I feel like I can't talk about everything. So anyway, this is probably enough for the month of August, I would say, going through the major points of the month. But I'll go through the rest of the month day by day. We're at the 21st now, 22nd, the moon is in Virgo. Venus is spending the whole month in Gemini. Remember, it'll move in to Cancer in September. So it's with Rahu. That influence is strong there all month. And so again, as I mentioned earlier, it's like this scandal. Rahu always brings scandal, and it's the sex scandal, it's child trafficking and all of that, Gemini. Ordinarily, Venus and Gemini would be the festival time of year. This is the time of year where people would be out and about normally, enjoying music festivals and all kinds. But because of Rahu, and Rahu being the block, we're obviously having to be more inventive this year. And so, well, people are actually, you know, doing their own thing anyway, I guess, but like other things are happening. There's a lot of online, like Rahu literally would represent that sort of online space as well. So a lot of people are meeting in that kind of space. I think a lot will come out of this. Subsequently, we might hear about sort of things, more scandals coming out of what people were doing when they were, you know, in lockdown or so on and so on. That could be another theme. So then the moon then goes into Libra on the 23rd, and it's got an aspect from Rahu in Venus's sign. So you might get a flavor of that again, 23rd, 24th. It's opposite Mars as well. So that's another key thing. Remember that Libra is getting it from all sides now. It's getting it from Rahu, Mars, and Saturn, all three. So then the moon moves into Scorpio on the 25th and 26th into the 27th. And as usual, every month, moon moving into Scorpio is a time to kind of, you know, be mindful of that more vulnerable space in us. It's a lot stronger this month because of Mars, and Mars actually aspects Scorpio. It has an 8th house aspect, so it looks directly at Scorpio. So that's a very powerful time as well at the same time, for going in and dealing with our vulnerabilities and our fears. And this would be a big theme anyway. And this is another article I'm writing about, which I hope to have up for you soon, when the nodes move into Taurus and Scorpio. One of the big themes of Taurus and Scorpio is dealing with our fears, overcoming them, ridding ourselves of whatever it needs to be rid of. In this case, most obviously the virus, and creating more stability in life, which is Rahu and Taurus. So that's a very big theme coming up, and that's something to be mindful of from September onwards. So then by the 28th and 29th, we have Moon again joining with K2, Jupiter, and Pluto. And again, this is where it all began, remember, with the virus last December. The Moon joined here with the Sun, Jupiter, K2, Pluto, Saturn, all of them lined up here in Sagittarius. And so we might see again by the end of August this kind of, again, more insights, because Sagittarius, Jupiter, all of that South Node bring insight. They reveal something. So who knows, by the end of the month, we might see that being triggered again. And then 30th, 31st, Moon has come back to where it is right now, where it is with Saturn. And by that time, Saturn will be in the second degree of Capricorn, and that's a very strong position for Saturn again, because the first 3 degrees of Capricorn is the Capricorn division, ninth division here you see on the right. And so it doubles up on Saturn's strength, which isn't necessarily a warm and fluffy thing, but it's most definitely the responsible thing. It's most definitely the sort of bigger picture. Let's grin and bear this. Let's put up with this austerity and do what we need to do or redo in this case, because it's retrograde, and it will continue to retrograde till September. Now, September, there's going to be quite a few changes, like even more than August in a way. In a way, August is a kind of like the trigger, the ignition, the start of something prematurely, of course. And then September, big things start changing because the planets start moving forward. Jupiter, Saturn station direct. Yes, Mars stations retrograde, but there's quite a lot of changes in September, and the nodes are moving, which is a bigger change as well. So a lot to report in September, a lot of big changes, which in this case, in the situation we're currently in a global pandemic and all of that, this is most absolutely welcome in terms of things moving forward and things kind of being revealed. But I'll talk more about that in September. And I think I'll leave it there for now. I, as always, wish you all the very best of what the month has to offer, of course. But for those that are here live, you're very welcome to ask me questions now. So you can either type them into the chat box, or you can raise your hand if you know how to do that, or unmute yourself and I'll take your questions. Okay, thanks. And until next time.